Hi, my name is Hannah, and today we're interviewing Philippe. Philippe is the Managing Director of Arton Capital and the Honorary Consul of St Vincent and Grenadines based in Singapore. Today he gives us his view on trends in second citizenship and residency as the curve flattens and we emerge into post-pandemic world.
This podcast channel is about you, successful international entrepreneurs, successful expats, successful investors. Sponsored by HCJ.tax.
Philippe, thank you very much for your time. I know you've been a busy guy traveling all over the world as you always do. Could you please introduce yourself to those who don't know who you are?
Thank you, Derren. My name is Philippe May. I'm the Managing Director of Arton Capital in Singapore and the Honorary Consul of St Vincent and the Grenadines here in Singapore. We are a global firm that is assisting people, investors, to enhance their mobility, to get residency and citizenship all over the world in those countries which have the relevant program. This is our task, and this we carry out very diligently all over the world, for me here in Southeast Asia and beyond.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Your expertise is very much in demand now that things are a bit uncertain in certain areas. So anyway, I want to ask you, how do you see things changing in the post-pandemic world? I mean, at some point, this will all be behind us, fingers crossed. What changes do you see coming?
Different changes, different challenges coming up. We don't know the details yet, but
Okay.
what I believe is going to happen is the following. Firstly, people want a plan B. They want a second home. They want a second residence and or a second citizenship. They want to have a safe place to go in case things go wrong. This has always been the case. Of course, people living in an uncertain world, in an unstable place, they want a plan B. But now we have seen in a very drastic way that there is not only political, financial, or military, but also medical turmoil. And that's another very strong reason for people to want to secure a safe passage to a place they trust, to another place where they live in. Many people are busy. They live in big cities, crowded places. They may have a good life there. They may have their business there, but it may not be the right place to be during a pandemic. So they want a more quiet, a more rural, a more secluded place. They may want to be in a more advanced country. So demand will increase for backup solutions, for second homes, second residencies. That's one trend I can see. Another trend is that we will see enhanced scrutiny on travelers. People will not just need a passport and maybe a visa, but they may also need to provide other documents when traveling or applying for a visa. They may need to bring health certificates, vaccination cards, things like that. We'll see how it's going to work out, but I'm sure there will be enhanced control. There will be more paperwork. Travel won't get easier.
Okay, that's right. And that's exactly some of the signals that we're getting, that some governments, there are apps to help tracing and all sorts of stuff, and that this could become the new norm, So, but then, another trend, and perhaps it's not a trend, it's too early to see, but another phenomena that I observed is that for some individuals who may have had long-term residential visas in certain jurisdictions, when the lockdown happened, either they couldn't get out or they couldn't get in. They could not get into the place that they call home. How does one prepare for something like that?
That's very rare. I have myself traveled around the world during this crisis.
Yeah.
It was not my intention to do so, but I got stranded in Panama at the other end of the world, had to travel back home. And I saw that if you have the right papers, you can do it. You just have to prepare for it. Countries always allow their citizens back home. And usually, as you know, here in Singapore is a good example. If you're a permanent resident or even an employment pass holder, if Singapore is your home, you can get in. If you can't get out, it's not due to government regulation. It's because an airport has been shut, because commercial flights have been canceled. But legally speaking, if you're a citizen, you always get home. If you're a resident, usually you should be able to get there as well. That's the case in the European countries. That's the case in all civilized countries. I'm not sure about some fringe or more backward places, but the countries that we are working with in Europe, in the Caribbean, in North America, they will allow not only their citizens, but also their residents to come home. So very important, if you get a second home, second residence or citizenship, make sure it's from a country with rule of law, with regulations that are first world, that are up to the standards you are used to and that you deserve. Don't get it in a shady place. Don't go to somewhere you don't know, somewhere the agents don't operate. Stick to the big boys, stick to the global firms, and make sure the place has a good regulation. You can see how they cope during this pandemic. So you will see there are countries which offer investors a new home and would not shut them out in the next crisis.
Okay, so I agree with you definitely. In terms of the advanced economy, so here I mean Japan, Western Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand. I'm unaware of any issues. People could come and people can go, and the difficulty was really flights. Once you're a citizen, a permanent resident, or a long-term visa person, so like in the US, it'll be H1, B1, indefinitely to remain in the UK, and so on. It happened. But in certain jurisdictions, for example, Singapore. So I'm a long-term resident in Singapore, but I'm on an employment pass. And it got to the stage where I was not let back in because they said it was for essential services only. And therefore, someone working in health or transport, otherwise you can get in. And similarly, in Malaysia, I understand that there was a period of time when some people on MM2H, my Malaysia second home, couldn't get in. And then with the airport being shut and all international flights grounded in KL at a certain point, I think it's open back up, and in Manila, you couldn't leave. So, it's just, you're right. So it is touch and go. If I was, as you say, sometimes people are earning their wealth, earning their money in one of the not advanced economy, what measures could you put in place should this happen again to be able to move quickly, you think?
Well, the first step is always a second home. You have to have a ideally permanent, not just temporary residence somewhere, and if possible, even a passport from that country. Then nothing can happen. Second, you have to watch the situation. You have to check early what are flights, what's the situation. Usually airports don't shut overnight. There is an advance notice of a few days, so you have a window to get out.
Correct.
And many countries, they even organize evacuation flights for their citizens. So if you're a citizen of a country which is doing that, you can count on them to assist you in getting home. Even if you're in a third country, if you're somewhere else, you have to get in touch with the relevant authority, usually through the embassy or the consulate, and wait for the instructions. That's what's happening in most of the first world countries.
And now, well, let's talk about how it was to some extent historically. A lot of the narrative was driven around low taxes, no taxes, and that type of conversation. My sense is right now there'll be a flight to quality. So people would look at the quality of the jurisdiction because one expects that this is not the last time there will be lockdowns. So, and the quality, as you said, the advanced economies, the high quality jurisdictions, there were increased restrictions, but as a long-term resident, as a citizen, you will always be able to leave or to come once you can find a flight. So, with that in mind, do you agree with that? And if so, what would be the five hottest countries to look for going forward?
I would look at European countries particularly
Mm.
because in Europe, most countries are continental, so you do not depend only on flights, but you can also travel by car or by train or
Mm.
by bus. Um, so you can look at Bulgaria, which has a very good permanent residency program for investors. Bulgaria is an EU member, continental country with borders to Greece, to Romania, and others.
Mhm.
You could look at Portugal, which is in Western Europe, which is also an EU member, which is a Schengen member, um, where you can get residence within a few months if you purchase a property there, starting at 280 or 350,000 euros, depending what you're looking for. Um, Another option is Montenegro. Montenegro is giving citizenship to investors uh, within a few months if they fulfill the due diligence requirements.
Mhm.
For that, they have to commit 350,000 euro, of which 250 is in real estate, 100 in the form of a donation to the government. Montenegro gives you a passport that travels visa-free all over Schengen, all over Europe, and you can take up residency in this beautiful country just next to Italy, next to Greece. And you can travel by car. You don't need a flight. You can travel by ship. So if airport is closed, not a problem. Hop on a car, drive up to wherever you like, Croatia, you name it.
Okay, so you think that Europe is going to be hot going forward?
Yes, Europe is going to be a good solution.
Mhm.
There are also island countries like Cyprus in Europe giving citizenship 6 to 8 months.
Mhm.
There you have the issue that it's an island, so you may depend on flights, but on the
Mhm.
other hand, it may be more isolated
Mhm.
from incoming issues. So
Mhm.
if you prefer the island location to be quiet, to be locked up in your little paradise, go to Cyprus. If you want to remain connected, you want to be able to drive to the next country, to the next big city, go to Montenegro.
Okay, and that's a fair point. That given what's happening, people will be looking for advanced economies, strong healthcare infrastructure, and wide open spaces. So you don't necessarily want to be congested in a big urban area. You want room. So
Exactly.
definitely. And with the UK counting down to the end of the year when Brexit will be actually effective, what continental European countries do you see Brits favoring? The
I
ones you
don't
mentioned?
think a lot of I don't think a lot of British will leave.
Okay.
Britain is going to do great,
Okay.
um, but still,
Mhm.
people want Plan B, want another option.
Mhm.
I think a lot of Brits will look at Portugal, which has been historically a good friend of Britain. They will look at Greece too, because Greece and the Greek part of Cyprus
Mhm.
is very familiar to them.
Mhm.
Cyprus even giving citizenship. So for those who can afford it, Cyprus will be the first option. For those who are not looking at the second passport, probably Portugal is
Mhm.
going to be popular, more popular than places like France or Spain. Another option for British are the West Indies in the Caribbean, five
Mhm.
West Indian countries offering citizenship that are all English speaking, that
Mhm.
are part of the Commonwealth,
Mhm.
that have direct flights to London,
Mhm.
where you have a relatively large British expat population,
Mhm.
depending on the country.
Mhm.
These are the options that the British are looking for when they talk about the second home.
Mm. And okay, well, let's talk about the Caribbean for a bit. Uh, I think the economic outlook perhaps seems a bit uncertain right now because those that are largely tourism dependent, as we were saying earlier, travel is going to become more difficult, and it'll be a while before capacity recovers. So, do you see any evolution in their citizenship by investment programs, or do you perhaps see an expansion as other islands jump on board?
That's hard to tell. At the moment, it's too early because we are still coping with this pandemic crisis.
Sure.
People are preoccupied with other issues than the expansion of citizenship programs.
Mhm.
But of course, once this is over, countries in the region will think very hard how they can survive, how they can diversify their revenues
Mhm.
beyond tourism. And citizenship and residence by investment is one option.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be more rare or more difficult. I think it will become more popular. There will be not only more demand, but there will be also more countries offering these options. And they will be learning from this pandemic crisis. They will look back and say, oh, how did we do? What did we do for our citizens? What were the opportunities they had? What do we need to do better? So we may see more programs. We may see more options within the existing programs. And we may see more demand at the same time.
Okay. And what about in Southeast Asia? Do you see any coming changes in the? I guess Southeast Asia is more from a retirement perspective. Do you see any evolution in that space? Any changes potentially?
Not really.
No, really.
Southeast Asia or Asia in general is not a place to get the second citizenship. Most countries do not allow dual citizenship. Some countries even make naturalization impossible. No country ever had a citizenship program. So Southeast Asia, forget about citizenship. It's just residence in a few countries. And even that is limited because it doesn't lead to permanent residence. It doesn't lead to citizenship. It's just like a long-term visa. You see, Malaysia that you mentioned earlier with MM2H program doesn't honor those kind of residencies, shuts out some of its residents, even if they don't really have another place to go, even if they can't go back to their country of citizenship because they've sold everything there. They moved to Malaysia, they're staying there. They may not be able to get in. Similar issues in Thailand with some xenophobic sentiment as well. So generally speaking, Southeast Asia isn't the place for investor migration before and after the pandemic. The exception, of course, is Singapore. Singapore is open to investor residents. It has a good program. However, the requirements are very high. The net worth requirements are in the millions. The due diligence is strict, and citizenship is not automatically granted after one becomes a resident. So Singapore is good, but only for a select few. Otherwise, Southeast Asia, I wouldn't see it as a destination to go.
And what about Hong Kong? What is your outlook on Hong Kong?
Hong Kong, it has an option to go there, but being increasingly absorbed by China, by the mainland, I don't think Hong Kong is very much in favor of many investor migrants. Tax-wise, Singapore is doing great. You don't need to go Hong Kong to save taxes. And if it's all about taxes, you can go other countries. You can go to Bulgaria, 10% personal income tax, the lowest in the EU. You can go to the Caribbean with some countries not having taxes at all or no personal tax. Hong Kong, I don't think will attract many, although they did well in this pandemic crisis. That's fine, but we have seen a lot of civil unrest in the months before. It's very close to China. You don't know how the next crisis is going to turn out. So Hong Kong, probably not a good option.
Okay. And looking back at going back to Europe and jurisdictions in close proximity to Europe, what are your thoughts on Dubai?
Dubai in the UAE, again, a great country, but no road to citizenship.
Right.
Even permanent residents, very limited, high cost, not a popular destination.
Okay. Okay, great. So I guess just to sum it up, going forward, it's all about Europe.
Europe and the Caribbean, and for those who don't just want the plan B, who want to move physically, who want to go
Mhm.
Still, North America is an option too, Canada, US.
Mhm.
But that's not a plan B. You need to go and live there. You have to spend your time there. If you
Mhm.
don't do it, if you can't do it, don't go to North America. If you want a second home for peace of mind, look at Europe, look at the Caribbean.
Okay, gotcha. Philip, thank you very much for your insight, which
Welcome,
is
Derren.
extremely useful at this point. One more thing I want to ask: when you go online and you Google, you just are inundated by all these agents who offer residencies and citizenships. What are the advantages to coming to an established, recognized firm like yourself, as opposed to these one-person shows online?
Mm. Okay, different advantages. First of all,
Mhm.
if you are looking at a second home at the plan B and you turn to an investor migration agency like Arden Capital,
Mhm.
you want to make sure that this agency is handling your file from A to Z. That is the case only with the global established players like us
Mhm.
that do not just have one outfit, one office somewhere in Dubai or in Shanghai,
Mhm.
but offices all around the world, in particular in the countries which offer the programs. Secondly, you need to look at the government mandates that such companies have. Arden Capital has about 10 government mandates. So we are not just assisting investors to get a second home
Mhm.
or residence or citizenship. We are also advising governments on setting up, implementing, designing those programs. That's very important.
Mhm.
And you have to look at the licenses that the agents are holding. So if somebody is not licensed anywhere in the world, what can you expect from them? Better turn to the big boy directly. So you can look up at the government websites of the relevant citizenship by investment units. Who are the licensed agents? If you don't find your agent there, forget it.
Mhm.
So these are the advantages you have. You can also look at how long the company has been around. We have been established some 12 years ago in Canada.
Mhm.
That's a good track record. Where are you incorporated? We have a company in UAE. We have a company in Singapore. We have a company in Canada. These are first class jurisdiction. If your counterpart is incorporated in mainland China, how are you going to sue them if there is a problem?
Yeah.
Don't don't do it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point because this is a space where unfortunately there are less than honorable people operating, and I personally have clients that have had bad experiences. So this is important. Philip,
That's very unfortunate. You should have referred them to us.
I should have my mistake. I'll know better next time. Philip, thank you. I
All right.
appreciate your insight.